we're going to be working with finding area of shaded parts. So we'll be working with circles, squares, rectangles, and triangles. So we need to know the formulas to find the area of each of these shapes. So let's start with the first one. We have a big circle, and we see that it has a radius of 7. And then inside of that circle, we have a smaller circle that has a radius of 3 units. So I need to find the area of only the shaded part. So in order to do that, I need to find the area of the large circle, the area of the small circle, and then subtract those. So first we find the area of the larger circle. So we know area is pi times the radius squared. So we know that for the large circle, our radius is 7. So that gives us pi times 7 squared. And then 7 squared is 49. So 49 times pi. And then the smaller circle, we have pi times 3 squared. So we have 9 times pi. So there are two different ways we can do this. So without multiplying out, I know that the large circle has an area of 49 pi, and the smaller circle has an area of 9 pi. So I could subtract these. So 49 pi minus 9 pi would give me 40 times pi. Or I can multiply them out and subtract. So 49 times pi would be 153.86. And then 9 times pi, and I'm using 3.14 for pi, so that area would be 28.26. So then I could subtract those. So 153.86 minus 28.26. So that gives me 125.6. So that means that the area of the shaded part should be 125.6 square units. And then if I go back to when I looked at 49 pi minus 9 pi, so I found earlier that the area of the shaded part should be 40 times pi. So if I multiply 40 times 3.14, I also get 125.6. So that means the area of the shaded part is 125.6 square units. Okay, next one. This time we are given a circle with, you could say, a square or 2 triangles inside of the circle. So I need to use the triangle formula to find area, because it does not give me the dimensions for the side lengths. So I don't know how long the side is, therefore I can't use the formula for a square. So I know my area for a triangle is 1/2 of the base times the height. And I know that the circle from the center to the outside of the circle is the same distance all the way around. So if my diameter through the center is 12, then that tells me that my height is also going to be 12. So going this direction, that is also 12 units tall. So my base of my triangle, so we'll say the red triangle, the area of the red triangle would be half of my base, which is 12. So 1/2 of 12 times my height. Well, since my height is only halfway across, then my height would be 6. So 1/2 times 12 is 6, and then 6 times 6 is 36. So the area of this top triangle is 36 square units. And I know that the second triangle, so this triangle, has the same dimensions. Therefore, the area of that triangle is also 36 square units. So now I need to find the area of my circle. So again, I have a diameter of 12, but for area, I need to know my radius. So since my diameter is 12, I know that my radius is 6 units. So that would be pi times 6 squared. 6 squared is 36, so 36 times pi is 113.04 square units. And I need to subtract the areas of my two triangles. So that leaves me with 36 plus 36. I know the total area of my triangles, or my square, is 72. So then 113.04 minus 72 is 41.04. So the area of the shaded part is 41.04 square units. Okay, now I have a square with a circle inside. So now I want to know what the shaded part of my square is. So since it doesn't give me any other side dimension besides the one dimension of 12, that tells me that it's a square and every side length is the same. So we know that the area of a square is length times width, or base times height. So that would be 12 times 12. Which would be 144 square units. So the area of the square is 144 square units. So now I need to find the area of my circle. I'm going to put a little square there so I know it's my square. So now I want to find the area of my circle. Since the side length of the square is 12 units and my circle touches each side of my square, then I know that the diameter of this circle would also be 12 units. So I need to know my radius for area. So pi times my radius. Well, if my diameter is 12, that tells me my radius is 6. So that would be pi times 6 squared. 6 squared would be 36 times pi. And again, 36 times pi would be 113.04 square units. So now I just need to subtract that. So 144 minus 113.04, which is 30.96. So the area of my shaded part would be 30.96 square units. Okay, now finding area and perimeter of composite shapes. So this is shapes that are made up of multiple shapes. So I see that I'm given certain dimensions. So to find an area, when I have composite shapes, I need to break those shapes down into shapes that I know how to find the area of. So for example, if I ignore my semicircles here on each side of the shape, then I know that I'm left with a rectangle. So if I ignore the semicircles, I have a rectangle that has a height of 6 and a width of, well, I see this is 14 and I see this is 16 up here, but I also have to take into consideration the width of the semicircle. So since this is 7, that would be 14 plus 7, which is 21. And then I have 16 plus 5, which is also 21. So that tells me that my rectangle is 6 units by 21 units. So I need to find the area of that first. So that would be 6 times 21, which would be 126 square units. And then I have my semicircles. So I have one here. So I have my semicircle that is 7 units wide. So that tells me the diameter is 7. So I would want to find the area of a circle and then divide that by 2. So if this was a full circle, I would do pi times the radius squared. And since 7 is my diameter, then that means my radius is 3.5 units. So 3.5 squared is 12.25. So that gives me 12.25 times pi. And then I have another semicircle here that has a width of 5. So pi times radius squared. So if 5 is my diameter, that means my radius is 2.5. So 2.5 squared would be 6.25. So 6.25 pi would be the area if that was the full circle. And then 12.25 pi would be the area if that was a full circle. So I have to remember to go back and divide that by 2. So 12.25 divided by 2 would be 6.125. So 6.125 pi. And then the area of this semicircle, so I need to divide that by 2 as well, which would be 3.125 pi. And I'm finding area, so now I need to combine each area. So I have 126 and then I have 6.125 times pi and 3.125 times pi. So I need to combine each of these. So first I'm going to combine my pi terms. So I have 6.125 plus 3.125, which tells me that this is a total of 9.25 pi. And I can go ahead and multiply that out. So 9.25 times 3.14 is 29.045. And then I need to add that to my 126 square units. So when I add 126, that gives me a total of 155.045. And I'll usually want to round to my hundredths place unless it tells me differently. So 155.045 would be approximately 155.045 3.05 square units. Okay, now to find perimeter. So perimeter would be distance around all of the outside parts. So here we have a 6, 16. I don't need to count this 5 because it's not on the outside, it's on the inside. Same thing for the 7. I don't include the 7. I do need to include the 14. And then I know that since the yellow section made a rectangle, then I know that this is also 6 units. So the only thing that I need to figure out is the distance around this semicircle and the distance around this semicircle. So I know that I have 6 plus 16 plus 6 plus 14. So I know I have those 4 dimensions without my semicircles. So that's a total of 42 units. So now I need to find out my semicircles. So this is where I would want to use my circumference. So I know that circumference is pi times the diameter. But since it's a semicircle, I need to divide that answer by 2. So pi times diameter. So when diameter is 7, that gives me 7 times pi. And I need to divide that by 2 because it's a semicircle, which would be 3.5 times pi. And 3.5 times 3.14 is 10.99. And then I need to find the distance around the second one. So pi times diameter would be pi times 5, which is 5 times pi. And again, I need to divide by 2. So that's 2.5 times pi. And 2.5 times 3.14 is 7.85. So now I just need to add all my total perimeters. So I had my 42 units, then I have 10.99 units, and 7.85 units. So the distance around this semicircle is 7.85. And then the distance around this semicircle was 10.99. So that's a total of 60.84 units. So 60.84 units. Okay, so we have another shape which has more parts, but the process does not change. So I want to think about what shapes I can break it down into. So I know here I have a rectangle. So I have a rectangle. And then I have a square. And then I have 3 semicircles. So here is 1. And then I have another one. That is smaller. And then I have one that looks to be a little bit larger. Okay, so I need to figure out the diameters of my semicircles. Looking at my largest one, I noticed that the distance across the top of my rectangle would be 5. And then I know this is a square, so this distance here is equal to 4 units. And then this distance is also equal to 4 units. So I know that the total width would be 5 plus 4 plus 4. So that would be 13 units. And it is 6 units tall. And then if I look at the bottom, I have a 6 and a 2, which is 8 units. So that tells me that this diameter is also 5 units. So my diameter is 5 units of that one. Of my green one, my diameter is 2. And of the blue, my diameter is 4 because it is equal with the side length of the square. So that tells me that my diameter would be 4. So the area of my rectangle would be 6 times 13, which is 78 units. And then I have my square, which is 4 units by 4 units. That would be 16 units. Now I need to find the areas of my semicircles. So to find the area of semicircles, remember we have pi times the radius squared. And then we have to divide that by 2 since it's a semicircle, because it's only half of a circle. So we have a diameter of 4, which tells me that my radius is 2. So pi times 2 squared. 2 squared would be 4, so 4 pi divided by 2, which would be 2 times pi, which would be 6.28 units. And then we have a semicircle of 2, so pi times 2 squared. So, need the radius. So that would be pi times 1 squared. 1 times 1 is 1, so that would be 1 times pi, which is 3.14. And then we have our diameter of 5. So the radius would be 2.5. So pi times 2.5 squared would be 6.25 times pi. And I need to divide that by 2. And that would be 3.125 times pi, which would be 9.8125. And then going back to this semicircle, I forgot to divide my answer by 2. So when I divide that by 2, that gives me 1.57. Okay, so now I just need to combine all of my areas. So I have 78 square units. I have 16 square units, 6.28, 1.57, and 9.8125, which gives me 111.6625. And now I can round it to my hundredths place. So that would be approximately 111.66 square units. Okay, so now we need to find the perimeter. So again, we need all the outside distances. We have 6 plus 5 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 again. We know since this is a rectangle that this side is also 6. Then we have another side with 6 units. And then we have to go back and find all of the distances around the semicircles. So far we have 6 and 4, which is 10, another 6 and 4, which is 20, and then another 6 and 4, which is 30. Plus 5 would be 35. So now to find our semicircles. So when we have this one here, so we know that our diameter was 2. So to find circumference of a semicircle, I need to do pi times diameter and then divide that by 2. And I know that diameter divided by 2 just gives me the radius. So I can also just do pi times the radius. So for semicircles, it's just pi times radius. So if my diameter is 2, then that means the circumference of this semicircle would be pi times the radius of 1. So pi times 1 would be 3.14. So I need to add that. Okay, then when my diameter is 4, so for this one here, I need to do pi times radius. Well, my radius is 2. So that would be 2 times pi. So that tells me that my circumference is also 6.28. So my circumference is the same as my area. So 6.28. And then I have a diameter of 5. So half of 5 would be 2.5. So 2.5 times pi. So 2.5 times 3.14, which is 7.85. So now I can combine all of those. So 7.85 plus 6.28 plus 3.14 plus 35 is 52.27 units. And then last one, this one's a lot easier because I just have a lot less parts. So if I look here at my rectangle, I have a rectangle that is 20 units by 8 units. So 20 by 8, which tells me that my area would be 160 square units. And then I have 2 semicircles that are both 8 units wide, so with a diameter of 8. So if I have 2 semicircles with the same diameter, then that's the same thing as having 1 circle with the same diameter. Let's see if I can get that drawn correctly. With a diameter of 8. So I just need to find the area of that. So area would be pi times the radius squared. Well, if my diameter is 8, then that means my radius is 4. So 4 squared would be 16. And 16 times pi is 50.24 units. So for my area, I just combine my areas now. So 160 plus 50.24 would be 210.24 square units. And then perimeter. So I know that I have 20 here, which tells me that this side is also 20. And then I need to figure out the distance around my semicircles. Well, again, since these two semicircles both have the same diameter, then I can just find the circumference of one circle with a diameter of 8. So circumference would be pi times diameter, which would be 8 times pi. So 8 times pi is 25.12. So that means my circumference is 25.12. This side would be 12.56 because it's half of the circle, and this side would be 12.56. So if I combine my parts here, I have 25.12 plus, I didn't mean to circle the 50, plus this 20 and the other 20. So that gives me a total perimeter of 65.12 units. So remember to always break it down into the shapes that you know in order to make it easier. And then remember, for example, this distance here, because it's on the inside of my shape, I cannot include these in my perimeter. This is only important for my area. And same thing up here. These distances were not included in my perimeter because they are on the inside. I can only include the outer distances. So here are all of the answers that you should have on your paper.